You found your person. Now let the Knot help you with everything else. The Knot connects you to the wedding inspo, vendors, venues, and planning tools you need to make your day totally you. Having helped plan 25 million weddings, we've got your back when it comes to every little detail like RSVPs, budgets, and more. Because your wedding comes to life with the connections that matter the most. Get started at theknot.com/audio. The Knot. Let's plan your wedding together.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Leo. How's it going? Good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you too, my friend. Yeah, I'm well, actually. I'm well. We've been on the merry-go-round of one kid gets a temperature, gets better, the other kid gets a temperature. So we're single-handedly keeping the Calpol family dynasty in operation at the moment with how much we're purchasing, and it is making our evenings fun. But there you go. That's such is life. How about you? What's going on?
Yeah, poor babes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, not much work has been really, really busy, which is great. I think, January and February are always nuts. People always say January is the longest month. I'm sorry, February is the longest month, even though it's the shortest. I think it's like all the projects that people, are like in January, you're like planning things and you're thinking about what you're going to do. But in February, you actually have to start doing things. And so the influx of, clients and projects and stuff like that is intense, but I much prefer that to being bored. So no complaints, but it has been busy.
You guys down at AirDNA, you're not slackers, are you? Your output's pretty phenomenal, right?
Yeah, we are definitely not slackers. I think I was on a call. Also, I have lots of clients in the States as well. And so I was on a call last night at like 11:30 p.m. because I was like awake and had nothing better to do and saw an email and I just can't help myself, oh, well, it was good. I like what I do. And so it's it's easy. It doesn't feel like work when it's enjoyable. But yeah, it's been intense.
I feel like there's a little bit of spring optimism in the air as well. Like, I mean, I'm sure there is in Barcelona. I'm sure things are looking brighter. But even here in grey old England, things are looking a little bit brighter. Things are looking up. And January's a tough month, right? You're in the trenches, but you can't really see the light. February, you start to see the light, even though it's busy. So, yeah, we are very exciting. We are booking our May holiday. So we're already thinking about early summer, late spring. What are we going to do? So we're going to go to Belgium. We're going to go to a sort of holiday lodge in the woods near the beach, just north of Bruges, I suppose will be. And how exciting is this, right? Because of where we've moved to in the UK, the drive to get there, plus a ferry or a train, whatever we choose to do, is less of a drive than it is to go back and see my family in my hometown in the UK. How cool is that?
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised you're driving, Leo. You love a train. What are you thinking there?
I do love a train, but when we look at you hanging me out to dry. I do love a train, but the problem is when we get to the lodges, it's very rural. So you kind of like then you'd be scuppered the whole time. But I do, and we're gonna talk about e-travel, electronic and sustainable travel slightly as one of our highlights today, and I think that allows us to get into it. But where we'll start, obviously, us and the family and the kids, we're booking our spring vibes. AirDNA have done a great article on this. Before you go into it, Sarah, tell us, have you and Mauro booked something yet for early summer?
We have. We have so much going on. My parents are coming in like very end of April, beginning of May. And we are going to Italy, which I'm super excited about. So I'm going to take them to Tuscany and then to Cinque Terre. And we're going to do Florence and Siena. And it's going to be great. I'm really excited. And then we have a bunch of like mini trips as well. We're taking advantage of the fact that we don't have kids yet with fevers. And so we are big festival people. And we, I don't know if I told you this, but we actually got tickets to Tomorrowland in Belgium in July. So we are packing our bags. The only ones we could get are like the worst possible tickets you can get where you sleep in a tent. And there's only outdoor showers, and it's going to be really grim and really rustic, and it's going to be fine. So we're
I
doing
love
that in July, which I'm really excited about.
what I think this shows is how much you enjoy the music, because I know that you don't enjoy any of the other things that you just mentioned there. That you're just in this for the music. You're not in it for the
When
tent.
we first got the ticket, I was pissed off for probably at least like 2 days. I was like so angry. I was like, but why are you so upset? We're going to Tomorrowland. It's going to be great. And I was like, I have to sleep in a tent and there is no hot shower. I am not pleased with this setup. And it was like, well, it was either that or we have to sleep like an hour and a half away from the festival because it's in the middle of nowhere. And so you'd be on a shuttle bus every day. Is that what you'd prefer? And I was like, no. And then he was like, and here's the lineup. And I was like, okay, fine. So
I'm in.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll go.
I'm in. Okay, Sarah, so that's what we're up to. Let's find out what the rest of Europe's doing.
Yeah, sounds great. Awesome. So luckily for everyone, AirDNA just released the January 2025 performance review. Pretty much good news all around. So listing growth in terms of available listings up 10.2% year over year. Even more interesting, demand nights. So that's the number of nights that were actually reserved in January. Was 23 million, which is a 16.9% year over year increase. Awesome. ADRs remaining pretty flat. But occupancy was up. So you're looking occupancy up about 3%. So it's still modest, as well as the ADR shifts, which was like 1.5% up. Yeah, look at that demand. Let's stay positive.
It's so cool. It's so great to see, isn't it? I guess because the economic forecasts are, they're better, aren't they? But I wouldn't say they're stunning. It's really interesting to see. Do you think we can keep the momentum up through the year?
I think we definitely can. One of the most exciting things in this data for me was like booked nights was at an all-time high. So we're talking like even the crazy years right after the pandemic when all the pent-up travel was happening. Insanely good in January. So really exciting about that. And also demand coming up for ski season is looking really good, and for Easter. So there's a lot of positive growth already coming up for April. I think part of it is just the dates. April is just more exciting than March. Let's be honest, when it falls in April, there's so many things you can do, because especially here in Europe, right? I mean, you have the people who love the snow and want to keep riding it out. And so there's a lot of ski holidays happening. And then you also have people who think, great, it's April, it can still be warm and I will go somewhere nice. So I think you have a little bit of something for everyone this Easter. And that definitely is driving up demand and driving up people being willing to kind of book more in advance. So things are looking really good coming up. It's going to be a really, really great Easter season. And I'm excited to see what summer brings. So we'll be back in a couple of months probably with what's happening over the summer, but so far looking good.
Too soon, I guess, to make any calls on summer because those booking windows are still shortening, right? So I feel like we can make a fair assessment. And what I was reading as well slightly is like Easter bookings are way ahead of where they were last year. We know we had a really good January. Croatia, namely, being one of the early places people are looking at. Croatia's been popular for a few years, so I'm not hugely surprised. I wonder if that's Game of Thrones tourism still sort of pushing its way through. Although I must say, it is just a beautiful part of the world, and slightly more cost effective than Italy, France, for example, or Ibiza, the Greek islands. So it does still have that kind of cost effect positive if your budget's a little lower, which maybe plays into the fact that people are still slightly feeling the pinch of the high inflation we've had over the last couple of years. So I think that could be interesting. Are we going to see people book the traditional vacation rental markets this summer, or are we going to see people continue to cast a net slightly further afield, trying new places where their euro goes a little bit further in their pocket? Or dare I say it, because we're going to have to talk about it, we have to talk about it every week, there's less regulation in the short-term rental market.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, the most interesting call outs were occupancy and ADR is more or less remaining the same. And that's because a lot of that new demand and increase in demand is being met by new supply in the market. And so, yeah, it's still for our operators out there, there's definitely still competition and they're going to have to do something unique to kind of stand out from the crowds. But all in all, it's good. The demand is there.
Great. Let's move on to my highlight, which actually full honesty for the audience, Sarah found and sent to me and said, "You'll love this because you love sustainable travel." It was so like, it was just a throwing it over the fence to me, wasn't it? Like, go on, there you go, sustainable travel boy. That's how it felt. So I'm excited about this one. So the article saying, are eVTOLs finally taking off? And an eVTOL is an electronic vehicle takeoff and landing. So it's a light aircraft traveling between cities or acting maybe as a kind of taxi service or a courier service. Exciting. So it turns out that the alternative to flying, which we've been talking about for a while, is flying, but it's flying without using gas. Now, the interesting thing about this market is it's moving at record speed, as you'd expect from a kind of early stage sector. And it seems to be that the initial runners and riders are slightly falling away. It references German company Lilium and a company called Volocopter that have both had financial problems. But coming then a bit later to the party, but raising significant amounts of money, are Archer Aviation and Joby Aviation, or Joby Aviation, not sure how it's pronounced, who have both raised over hundreds of millions of pounds. Joby Aviation in partnership with Toyota, which is really, really interesting. So I think this is one of those ideas that maybe is about to find its time has come. And why do I say that? Because there is an opportunity with AI to significantly improve the air traffic control management that would allow these vehicles to get into the sky. And also the technology's there. And I actually watched a couple of videos. I went down the wormhole, Sarah, as you knew I would last night. I was kind of watching this in bed. And these vehicles are fantastic. So they need like what they're calling vertiports. And because they set off and they just go completely up vertically and then they go across. So they're also saying this is a real dent into the helicopter market potentially, which again, helicopters are they're very, very expensive because of the amount of fuel they use. They're not particularly safe. We know problems happen there. So I think this is really exciting in terms of people hopping between cities. Why is this hot? Because we in Europe, and I think we've talked about this before, but we in Europe are more likely to try and find an alternative to taking the plane if we can, if it's a short journey, because we have the rail infrastructure in place. But culturally, there's more of I really feel like I shouldn't be taking this flight. In the US, I think there is no alternative. You have to take the flight because there probably isn't anything like the infrastructure you would need to like take a quick train. We know that. So culturally, it's different. Also, I feel that the green agenda is higher up the priority list in Europe than it is in the US right now. So again, potentially Europe has the opportunity to be a leader in this when it comes to investing in it. However, Europe's not great in investing in infrastructure, and there would be an infrastructure investment requirement in order to get this thing, pardon the pun, off the ground. So it's really interesting because I think as you would expect, a lot of these aviation companies are coming out of Silicon Valley. So a lot of the innovations coming from the US. I think a lot of the political will sits within Europe, and it's about who can put those two things together. And what's really interesting is there's a lot of investment from the Saudis and other Middle Eastern players on this. And for them, I think it makes a ton of sense because they are very, very willing to invest in infrastructure. And the governments and the leaders there take an active position and are happy to subsidize industries like this. And to me, it feels that something like the eVTOL market, you could see being hugely popular in like a very kind of bougie place like Dubai, right? Like you go from one rooftop vertiport onto the next one. So it's really exciting. We're talking here about eVTOLs that have a driver, but have a pilot, but it won't be long before that market can be fully driverless. And that is also very exciting. That's where I think it has an advantage over the traditional helicopter market and potentially even the short haul flight market. And look, if you're an airline and, Joby have mentioned that they're in bed slightly with Uber and Delta. If you're an airline, why wouldn't you get in on this? Because, you want to take the plane to get you on that long distance, and then they get you into the airport and they get you onto a smaller light aircraft and get you onto your final destination. That's great. Like that is potentially seismic in terms of what that does to the travel industry. Because right now, when we're looking at flights, I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to, for example, I'm going to Denver next month. In April. So I'll fly to Denver. Imagine if then I see a link on Delta to say, great, which part of the city you're going to. You can get here from the airport and fly to this part of the city. So the opportunities are really endless. And whoever has that integrated journey, like if I can book that whole thing, that's potentially really exciting, right? I could start in my city, get an eVTOL to the airport, and end up eventually, after more flights and eVTOLs, in my hotel for the night. Exciting, right?
It is exciting. I love these. I remember pretty much, I'm American, so I've been driving since I was like 16. And every time that I would be stuck in traffic, I remember thinking, when are those sci-fi movies going to be real? And I don't have to sit in this traffic. This is awful. And I recently moved back to Barcelona, to the city center, like a year and a half ago. But before that, I was living outside the city and I was driving in every single day. And every single day, I swear, I wish that I could just get in a nice vehicle that would drop me off in the city center. I kind of think that it's more interesting actually for issues of pollution and congestion of cars within the cities. I think it's going to make the cities more sustainable if we can get it right. I think it's a great alternative to public transportation, which actually we talk about infrastructure, but like I think about so many places that are outside the city center of Barcelona that need a good connection into the city center. And because there isn't one, people are driving individual cars. That's polluting. It's causing traffic. It makes the city noisy and awful. And so if we can get this right, I think for more, I'm more excited about it for like the commuter traffic use case. I think that would maybe even be more, I guess it would be easier maybe to build the infrastructure because it is more hyper-local and is something that would directly impact the taxpayers. And so I think it would be easier to get something like that approved in terms of subsidies or in terms of government financing than maybe something that is like an alternative to normal airline travel. And then maybe I would see it going there for some of the short haul flights. But I think that's what I get most excited about with this. As always, I have to bring my healthy dose of cynicism. It was really clear in the article that one of the biggest issues facing kind of this industry taking off is the fact that AI is needed because right now there's like something like 100 flights or planes that a normal air traffic controller can control right now reasonably. And so it has to be something that is going to be done by machines, not by humans. And there's a couple of problems with that. One, hackers. Can you imagine the mayhem when all of a sudden all of these eVTOLs crash into each other, or somebody gets in the system and decides to reroute them all where they go somewhere else, even if it's not even a tragic thing and it's just irritating. I also think the legislation for something like this, we talk about, I think the applications, absolutely, I think you're right. In Europe, it would make a huge difference, much more so than maybe in the States, where the distances tend to be much farther. But the regulation in Europe, I think, is going to be really hard to get anything passed. I mean, you can't even hardly get a self-driving car passed in Europe, whereas in the States, it's like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Probably safer than a human. So I don't know. I would wish it would be true, and I wish that it was all perfectly regulated and everything would be great. But I think it's going to be a long ways away. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetimes, Leo. I don't know.
Stop it. Come on. We can't even, no, come on. Because one, we've got a pact on this. We're going to live forever. So let's not even go there. But two, come on, 10 years, let's say 10 years. You're right. I agree. I think the way you've laid it out is right. I think the political is low. The political goodwill on this subject in Europe would be really, really high. Also, your point on commuting. That's why I think this is maybe starting to come of age, because it can be pilotless, right? It can be autonomous. And that's what it would need to really get enough of these things in the air to make it more cost effective. So no one in Europe is going to spend big on having their own pilot come and pick them up and take them to work, because no one has the incomes like that. Whereas I could see even that it might just be a real luxury pursuit in the US. Like I'm thinking California, Silicon Valley. I could see the very affluent taking this mode of transport. Middle East, as I said earlier. But Europe's where I think you can actually have the most benefit, because it has got the most congested cities. And again, there is that chance to slightly leapfrog when the technology allows you to. Again, it's the long-term vision, it's the strategy. Interesting. Okay, we'll leave that one there. I think we've opened a can of worms. We could talk all day on that. Audience at home, send us your comments, send us your opinions on this. I think it's really interesting. That vertical, that idea of the horizontal booking journey just being just done from like door to door, I think is hugely exciting. And it could all be through an app, which is hence why the strategic partnerships with Uber and Delta, I think, are ones to watch. Okay, we can't not talk about it. You can't go a week without talking about Airbnb. They always find a way to get themselves in the news. But this week it's legitimate. We're talking about earnings calls. So, Sarah, what have you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Airbnb released its earnings early this week. I think for me, the biggest standouts were call-outs about the co-hosting program, which we have talked about. In the first 4 months, they are saying that they have nearly 100,000 listings that are being supported by co-hosts. And even more interestingly, they're reporting on the earnings of these properties. And so these properties are earning nearly 2 times what an average Airbnb in the same country would earn, which I think makes this even more plausible that it's going to continue to expand. So they've already cited, this is available and up and running in 10 countries right now. And Japan and Korea are the next places that they're going to expand this to. So definitely something for our industry to keep an eye on and keep watch over. I think ultimately it's great. It professionalizes the industry. It professionalizes Airbnb. And we've seen this happen it's been a concerted effort really over the past 6 to 12 months from Airbnb, where, they removed late last year over 300,000 what they consider to be underperforming listings. And so they're definitely going much more after quality rather than quantity, which is a very different shift to what they had historically. And I think ultimately a lot of this is because they want people to have Airbnb be synonymous with quality and something that you can go to and book and you know more or less what you're getting. And so I think this is sort of in line with that, which was really interesting. In terms of the financial results, earnings were positive for Q4 and for the full year of 2024, which is great. But there are some ongoing headwinds. So there is definitely massive rising competition in the short-term rental space, be that from other OTAs, be that from people booking on social media, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So there definitely is more competition in the space. And then there is also an imbalance of supply and demand as regulations are starting to tighten, particularly in more urban markets. And so this is definitely something to keep watch over. Airbnb sort of tempered the expectations of shareholders based on some of these headwinds. That they may not have quite as big of a boomer for the upcoming quarter as maybe people would have hoped. So for me, super interesting, but I don't know. What do you think, Leo?
I think the regulatory environment means it's potentially advantage booking.com, advantage Expedia, advantage booking.com, because as we've talked about, as the little dots disappear from the maps where it gets harder to rent, and people are just going to end up being on an aggregated search that shows me hotels and short-term rentals side by side. Airbnb is so synonymous with the short-term rental sector. And I think this is where, it's an okay set of results, right? But we're talking about Brian Chesky's talking about their desire to have Airbnb used a couple of times a week instead of a couple of times a year. That's one of the quotes, right? So he's talking about being like lodging, long-term lodging and alternative accommodation, and this idea that they're going to build more businesses. That's where it slightly falls down for me, because I think that they've done really well with the co-hosting network because it's so firmly in their wheelhouse. Like they have two customers. They have hosts and they have guests, and they sort of flip between treating their hosts really well and less well, and they've always treated their guests really well. But I listen to other podcasts, which I do. Sorry, honesty call. I listen to other podcasts, and I always get served Airbnb ads, I think, because of the things I click on, and they're making a huge play for hosts at the moment. Like, make some money from your home when you're out of town, or there's an event in your town. Make some money, leave. All of that, like really, really, really playing into the host. That's their smartest move for sure. Like the co-hosting, it is a success, because I wonder, and we won't know from this data, how many of those 100,000 listings are being co-hosted by people who are also putting them on different OTAs and are properly managing them, or how many of them are just the person who lives around the corner who's decided to do your check-ins for you for a few extra pounds. It's really hard to know, and hopefully we'll get more clarity on it. I'm sure Eddie and I will be able to help with that later in the year when it's more established. But if that is the latter, if it is the people helping each other out, and then they're stopping those people, they're really reducing the chances that those people are going to go and book on a different OTA or even start engaging with a different OTA. So they're doing that really clever thing that Airbnb is good at, which is they're creating a microclimate. That means that, because I imagine the co-hosting networks started from someone saying, isn't it ridiculous that we have these hosts on Airbnb and then somebody they decide they can't be bothered to manage it, so they take it to a property manager, and suddenly they're on all the OTAs, and they're going, well, how do we build against that? How do we stop that? But it doesn't then make me think that they can become the Amazon of travel, because I just think that they're synonymous with hosting and short-term rentals. That's why I don't think they've ever really made experiences work. And I'll be proven wrong, of course. I'm sure experiences will come up towards the summer, and we'll talk about it and assess how experiences are going with Airbnb. But I just don't see them that way. I think people use them to book their holiday, and then they turn off the app until they're ready to book their next holiday. And then when they're in stay, they use it to communicate with their host. And I just think potentially talking in these bigger terms is what they need to do to show that they are that there's a reason to stay with them. But I think increasingly they're just going to stay in there. They're going to stay within their zone of, we make money from stays and we make money from hosts. What do you think? Am I being a bit too cynical?
I don't think you're being cynical at all. I think you're absolutely right. I think this is exactly why the co-hosting initiative has really taken off, because it's core to what Airbnb does, and it's so well aligned to their brand. And I think that's why they struggled initially with experiences. I think that's why they're probably going to continue to struggle with a lot of these ancillary services as well, whether that's transportation to and from the Airbnb or something like that. I could maybe see the transportation bit a little bit more than like an experience. And I actually would challenge you a little bit on the experiences. I did a couple of experiences on Airbnb, and actually, like, they were okay. I think it would have been better not having come from Airbnb. I don't really know how to frame that, but I feel like for me, it would have been much better if the host had recommended, hey, by the way, there's this really cool tour. If you're looking for, here's like 5 cool tours that are unique that you can do. So like one of them I did in New Orleans, and it was like a voodoo tour. And it was actually super cool. Like, we went into this like guy's house and like sat with his grandma, who like told us all these like cool voodoo stories, and we made our own little, not a voodoo doll, but like a little voodoo sachet, and like, then like went to his studio and like it was really cool. And it was unique, and I haven't found anything similar. There's a lot of like voodoo tours and voodoo stuff like that, but nothing that felt authentic. But I feel like for me, because I had booked it on Airbnb, it felt less authentic, even though I know it was authentic. I don't know how to say that in the right way.
I get you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
The
Whereas I guess maybe if there's something maybe there's something philosophically here. We're going going too deep, but when you book your accommodation, a customer may want, someone who's from outside the industry, certainly, who's just quickly booking, may want the certainty of an OTA, may want the certainty of Airbnb, because there is, however accurate this statement is, there's a standardization there going on. Someone's had to apply to be a host on Airbnb. There's a big asterisk next to that, but there you go. Like that. Whereas maybe with an experience, you want the opposite. It wants to feel authentic. It doesn't want to feel standardized. So yeah, maybe I can agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, speaking of experiences, Leo, what is up with TripAdvisor?
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think I have booked an Airbnb experience or two, from time to time, and it's one thing. So I remember my dad mentioned on the pod. My dad's getting a lot of mentions on the pod, isn't he? He'll be delighted. He was always saying that he worked in, before he went off to university, he worked in country pub near where he lives, and he always said he always thought there was real money in bringing tourists in and showing them like a little bit about country life, right? Taking them fishing, taking them shooting, whatever it might be, whatever they were doing back then in the 70s in the countryside. If you could match it, right? If you could match it up, like bringing that in, and obviously that's been the wonderful thing about the growth of things like TripAdvisor, is that when people do arrive in a destination, they are looking to have that authentic experience, depending on what that destination is, whether they are in the countryside or whether they're in a big city. So I think I'm not surprised that the financial performance of their experiences part of their business, which is Viator, is up. And that accounts for 46% of their total revenue, because I think that is when I think about TripAdvisor, that's what I think about them for. It's advice, it's recommendations, and it's also booking experiences. And back to comparing to Airbnb slightly, I wonder that Airbnb just maybe doesn't quite have enough experiences on there to feel like you're in the TripAdvisor feels like the go-to place, the hub for finding out what you should be doing in the city. And then the next logical step is, well, I might as well book that because that actually looks really good, rather than just being lesser amounts of experiences on Airbnb and maybe them being quite similar based on the people who have decided to upload their experiences to Airbnb. So I think with the experiences, with the however you want to describe it, with what you do when you get there, I think it does make sense to focus on who the leader in that market is, because then you know that that's where the key experiences are going to be. And when I think TripAdvisor, again, that is 100% what I think about. So again, they've said that this is their main strategy for growth. You can see it in the numbers. They're having a fairly average time of things. So as a brand, as a group, revenues are actually down 6% year on year, but the Viator Q4 revenue is up 16% year on year. So that shows you kind of where they're going. So it's maybe thinking that parts of their business, like the hotel booking, flight bookings, is a little bit sluggish. This part is really taking off. So clearly they're naturally saying this is where we need to be. And they have got in there early with the AI stuff as well, because we know that they're involved with ChatGPT's operator. And I guess they see that as being a really interesting opportunity to do the whole booking experience. We've talked about AI trip. Sarah thinks she's better than AI chatbots for booking holidays. But we're going to pit Sarah. We do a whole episode, 30 minutes of Sarah via an AI chatbot trying to book holiday. But
I will win. win.
But with the advent of that, why not? Like, why not have, you book your accommodation on, you book your flights on TripAdvisor, you book your flights on Expedia, your accommodation on Booking.com, and then your experience via Viator. And I do think, again, back to my point, that my bet here is that the AI operator in question will want to go where they know it's the easiest place to find the most experiences. So having the most inventory, having the most product on the shelf is going to help you in this new environment. So I get it. They're betting big on AI, as I think they should be, and they're kind of doubling down. So it's about finding what it is that makes their business unique and rolling with it. So yeah, I'm pro. I like it. I'm a TripAdvisor user myself. As you know, I'm quite frugal. I don't spend much money. So I more just use it to find the most cost-effective, tasty restaurant. I'm not booking things necessarily. But yeah, I can totally get on board with this. So yeah, I think it's a smart move. What about you?
Yeah, it's funny how when companies actually stick with what they're known for and what they do best, they succeed. Isn't that interesting, Leo? I don't know. I think that for me is the biggest takeaway, right? Just like when I think of TripAdvisor, I think of experiences. I don't think of booking my accommodation on TripAdvisor. It's the same with Airbnb. I think of my accommodation and booking my accommodation, but I don't necessarily think of experiences or transportation or anything like that. And so I do still think that, especially the competition from some of the other OTAs, from an Expedia or a Booking.com that have historically done it all. And so you do associate them with being kind of one of those multi-step booking engines. I think Airbnb and TripAdvisor are probably going to continue to struggle until or unless, just as you say, they can really flood the market with a lot of supply in this area. And I think that's historically where they've struggled with the experiences. When Airbnb first launched it, they wanted to make sure, which I understand, that they were curated and they were good experiences and they were going to represent the brand well. But I think when you're really trying to break in, you got to just go gung-ho and have a lot of supply, because otherwise you're never going to be synonymous with that being something that you do. And then I think you were fine. And that's something they did really well with the lodging sector. Their strategy for many, many years was get as many properties as possible. And now they're finally in the stage where they've reached such a critical mass that they're starting to remove underperforming listings to increase the quality. But you have to have the supply first, and you have to have the volume before you focus on just the quality.
I think that's right. And something in there that you said, I think I liked well, which made me think, you probably have like 3 seconds for people to be able to describe what your brand does or your toast long term. Like, you can't just be like jack of all trades, master of none. So, and I think you could say there's been a few missteps from, say, TripAdvisor, and now they're doubling down and going, well, we probably are the master of recommendations, reviews, and we can be the master of people then booking experiences. That's adjacent to just looking at how nice a restaurant is, but it's very, very, very closely adjacent to it. And again, if I had 3 seconds to describe Airbnb, it's obvious it's a short-term rental OTA. So again, I don't know, you're only interesting once as a business. Maybe that's not true, but I think you only are interesting once, and people aren't going to overly engage with. I don't know if necessarily people are going to go on that journey with you. So yeah, I think when we come back and we do earnings calls again, we're going to see that continue for TripAdvisor. And I'm going to bet we're going to see that continue for Airbnb, that it's the co-hosting network and it's the growth into new markets, right? Their biggest challenges, Airbnb's biggest challenges, they've got to find unregulated markets and then convince local hosts to get out of town, because that's their best bet of stopping future regulation if they can show that it's local hosts getting out of town and not things being taken off the housing supply. The rest, I think, is marketing. I think your cynicism's rubbing off on me. I've really gone heavy on the cynicism. I'm proud of myself.
I love it. I love it. I'm proud of you too, Leo. I know. I feel
Thank
like I'm the positive Polly today, and you're Mr. Cynist. I love it.
Guys, thanks for being with us today. Sarah, what have you got going on? What's happening this week for you?
Yeah, I have my improv showcase tonight at 9 p.m. I'm so excited. I'm on my second round of classes, and I've been doing the classes for 6 weeks, and tonight is the big showcase. So yeah, whenever I get famous, you heard of me here first on GMH Europe. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's gonna be great. I always enjoy the classes and I love the performances, and so yeah, super excited about that.
Love that, buddy. That's so cool. And I'm going to come and see you one of these days when my kids stop having temperatures. Okay. And I'm flying to Sofia for Scale Eastern Europe, which I'm really excited about. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll be catching up with some of our, we'll miss you, obviously, catching up with some of our industry friends. I realized we were talking to Simon about seeing him in London. I'm actually going to see him this week. And we are going to be doing a show there. Damien and I will do an episode from the conference. And hopefully, if we're lucky enough, we'll be interviewing the mayor of Sofia as well. So we've got a lot of stuff going on.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And to you at home, thanks for joining us this week. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit like, share, subscribe, and all the usual social places. Or go to Apple, Spotify podcast, leave us a 5-star review or a comment. It all really helps. Until next week. Thank you.